Welcome to the Bible in 1 Year with Uchudo Aye, and I'm your host, Uchudo. Yes, so today is episode 207, and we have 158 days to go. So I chose, if you're new here, welcome. I chose to do this, read the Bible from Genesis to Revelation, because I wanted to get to know more about the Bible stories, see what insights I could draw from my life, test the theories and the philosophies that are in there, discard the things that I think are no longer useful or serving. Yes, I actually think there's some things that are not. And find help for life's daily challenges, right? I didn't used to say that at the beginning, but now I am saying it. So yesterday I mentioned that I was a bit under the weather, so one of the things that saw me through was remembering some of the scriptures. Psalm 91 was one of the scriptures that kept coming to my mind, and I kept saying it over and over and over again until I felt like I was out of danger at the emergency. So you're welcome for joining me today. Um, every single day we look at a our daily Bible reading guide. This daily Bible reading guide, where we look at an Old Testament, a New Testament, a Psalm, and a proverb every day. Some people say that's a lot. They will just rather stick to 2-3 chapters every day, one book at a time. But the writers of this thought otherwise, and I guess it also spices things up because there are some portions that are very difficult to understand. All right, that said, we are currently almost cruising through the book of Second Chronicles 17 and 18. Today, we're going to look at Proverbs 22 to 3, and we're going to that he was challenged by a man of God. He had that man of God arrested and put in prison, but he developed a sore foot and he didn't quite get better. All right, so his son Jehoshaphat became king. Jehoshaphat was known as a good king. It was said that God was with him. Jehoshaphat quickly stationed troops, fortified towns, and added garrisons to key parts of the country, especially, I guess, because war was, when he became king, there was war. Hello, RK. Hello, Sauraba. Okay, let me say Saroj. Yes. Thank you for joining me here today. Uh, this is the Bible in 1 year where we read, thank you very much, Vista, where we read Genesis to Revelation. So we're currently in the book of Chronicles. Every single day I show up, I read the Bible, and at the end of the year, we'll have finished reading the Bibles. I retell the stories, I dramatize, I lace it with Nigerian humor. Thank you. Thank you. I lace it with Nigerian humor, if you can get it. Basically, I just retell the stories and share insights or my thoughts when I'm reading them. Okay? Alright, so today we're looking at King Jehoshaphat. He becomes king after his father Asa, and he's known as a good king. He seems to be quite military because he quickly. How old I am? Okay, you know what will happen? If you join me tomorrow, I'll tell you how old I am. If you join me tomorrow. So please subscribe to my channel. Turn on the notification button so that you can know when next I go live. Hello, Radha. Thank you for joining me. Turn on the notification button so that you know when next I go live. Okay? And why don't you listen to my story and let me know what you think in the comments below, okay? All right. So Jehoshaphat quickly came in with like military strategy and quickly began to capture towns and everything. And God was with him because he followed in his father's earlier footsteps. He didn't worship Baal, you know. And I think that Jehoshaphat was one of the kings that they compared to David. Jehoshaphat was compared to David. Yes. I don't know if I wrote when I was reading it. So God was with him because he followed in his father's footsteps. He didn't worship Baal. God established him. And do you know what it means when they say God established? You know, before I used to wonder, what did I even mean? But now, established is like to have you deeply, deeply rooted. While the other kings were kings, they were not established. Jehoshaphat, on the other hand, was established. People brought him gifts, making him extremely wealthy. Kind of like his great grandfather Solomon became just as wealthy. He tore down shrines and poles, and began to teach people. So Jehoshaphat was an odd king. He was the first king that we saw actively took teaching of the people the word of God, like his personal ambition, personal mission. He would travel. He got priests to begin to travel around the towns, teaching them. They took the book of the law. They would go to places and they would teach people the book of the law. He himself traveled along with them, and the fear of God fell on surrounding kingdoms. No one dared to pick a fight with Jehoshaphat. Arabs brought like 7,700 rams and goats. Even the Philistines that were always in scripture, always fighting and at loggerheads with the Jews and the Israelites, were bringing gifts to Jehoshaphat as well, bringing gifts of silver and silver tributes in alliance with Israel's. Bringing gifts of silver as tributes. Jehoshaphat became really, really powerful. He built fortresses. Judah had 300,000 soldiers, 1,000 units. Benjamin might had 200,000 soldiers. They had lots of bows and shields. He made alliances with Israel's King Ahab. Remember now that he is the king of Judah. So you know what I just realized? You know what I just realized? When we read the book of First and Second Kings, it talked about the kings of initially Israel. Then when Israel broke apart, it remained with Judah. It remained with the king of Israel, and continues to talk about the king of Israel. When we come to Chronicles, it starts to take us back to the Judah arm of things, like more details about the kings of Judah. I was no longer focusing on the king of Israel like he did in the book of Kings, First and Second Kings. Okay, so now I remember in Second Kings we looked at King Ahab and all his atrocities. Ahab was so bad that Ahab became like, you know, when they divide an era and you become the milestone. Someone says before Ahab, nobody like Ahab. Ahab became the corner, like the cornerstone, the pillar used to describe a new era. Ahab was a very wicked king. So it was in this time that Jehoshaphat was king. And I remember very well when Jehoshaphat used to visit Ahab. Jehoshaphat was very reliable and likable. Even when you read the book of Second and First Kings, he was very reliable and likable. So I guess he had a really nice character. He was a sweet guy. So he made alliances with Israel's king Ahab. They even got their children to marry. One time he visited Samaria to see King Ahab, and God was, so there was a whole story here which I didn't quite document in my books because I had told this story before. It said that God was looking for how to pick a fight with King Ahab of Israel, and he's speaking in heaven saying, how do I lure this guy to his death? God do. That's what the scriptures record. So and spirits came to him and said, we can do this, we can do. And then one particular spirit came and said, I know what to do. We're going to put lying spirits in the mouth of his prophet. Since he doesn't believe in you, we're going to make sure the prophets he listens to, they will lie to him so that he will go to war and he will go and die. And God was like, yeah, that's a good idea. We're going to go. So Jehoshaphat was with Ahab when that thing was happening. So I remember that was when he visited. So this is the other side of the story. So when Jehoshaphat visited Ahab was trying to persuade him that they should go and collect some town in Ramah, some place, and recover Ramah in Gilead. It belongs to them. And Jehoshaphat agreed. Okay, we're one. Why not? Let's go and do it. But first, let's find out what God says. And in the book of Kings, Jehoshaphat, even with Ahab's son, he continued to advise, let's hear what God says. But Jehoshaphat is like, Ahab is like, he doesn't believe in God, doesn't care about all those God things. He has idol prophets that deal with those matters for him. So he says, so anyway, the summary is that God agrees to that spirit, and then Ahab now says, I want to pick a fight with, I want to go and recover the land of the town of Ramah, and I want to pick a fight with them. So Ahab, Jehoshaphat says, let's hear what God says. So he says, all right, let's invite the prophets. So they call the prophets. The prophets are telling him, don't worry. You see this horn? You see this horn in my hand? This is how you see how I pierced this paper with this horn? Did you see how easily my horn passed through this paper? Did you see it? This is how you are going to crush this person. This one will say this, that one will say that, this one will say this. Ahab was feeling like, yeah, that means I'm going to win this war. Jehoshaphat was like, isn't there any real person of God here? You know we are Israelites, and you know that we have a God. Jehoshaphat and Ahab says, there's one particular guy, I hate him. Come on, man, don't talk like that. You're a king. I hate him. He never says anything good, you know. So Jehoshaphat tells him, bring the guy out. So they go and call Micah. Of course, they begin to tell Micah before he gets there, try and say what the king wants to hear. You know, you are always known for saying negative things. Don't go and say anything negative now. Go and say what the king wants. So Micah gets there, and then they ask him, so we want to go and pick a fight for the land of Ramah. Tell us what to do. Micah is like, go. He's like, didn't we tell you to always tell the truth? All right, you asked for it, so let me tell the truth. And then he begins to narrate how he saw a vision. In the vision, he saw spirits telling God that they want to eliminate him. And Ahab gets angry. So when Ahab gets angry, this guy knows that God really means to eliminate you. The fact that you can't even hear what I'm telling you, and you know I'm telling you the truth, that means that God really means to eliminate you. God really means to eliminate you. So he tells him, I see Israel scattered. You still insist on going for this war? I see Israel scattered and all over the hills. And they were saying, their king has been killed. I saw it in a vision. So if you insist, that's what I've seen. So Ahab says, you know what, I'm going to lock you up until I come back to prove to you that your prophecies are a lie. And so they went ahead to this war. In that war, Ahab is killed. Even though, you know, when they used to go to war back in the days, the king dresses in his full robes, rides in his specific chariots. Anybody who is fighting war can see the king. So that if the king is issuing a directive, withdraw, retreat, everybody knows. If the king is blowing is raising a banner, people can see the banner, and the banner remains high because the king is leading, you know. But if anything happens to the king, the banner will drop. And so the kings always wear robes that they can be identified in. But Ahab, being smart, now tries to disguise himself as an ordinary soldier. He tries not to dress as a king. So while they were at war with Ramah, people even see Jehoshaphat, and they go to Jehoshaphat and they realize, oh, thank you, Ezechiku. Thank you, Ezechiku. So they go to war. They even attempt to pursue Jehoshaphat, and they realize this is not Ahab. It's not you we are looking for a fight. We want Ahab. Look at, we have all these soldiers. Their assignment is to find Ahab in the crowd and eliminate him. That's our singular assignment. And they had a whole crop of people whose singular assignment was to find Ahab. But Ahab was disguised, right? Until some guy accidentally shot an arrow. The arrow ricocheted and then bounced off something else and pierced Ahab, even in his disguise. Ahab didn't make it. And by sundown, Ahab passed on. Anyway, when this guy goes back, when he passes on at sunset, and that ends the whole of the Ahab story. Thank you, Sumto. That's my people. Okay, so that ends our Old Testament reading today. Okay, and our Proverbs is 20 verses 2 and 3. The wrath of a king is like the roaring of a lion. Whoever provokes him to anger sins against his own life. It is honorable for a man to stop striving, since any fool can start a quarrel. So I guess that means we shouldn't quarrel. He's vulnerable to stop quarreling. So our final, we are concluding Romans 9, and then we'll be done in the next few minutes. So hang in there. You've made great. We have made record time today. All right, let me quickly do this. So Romans chapters 9 verses 25 to Romans chapters 10 verses 12. So if you remember, Paul is continuing his argument here, and Paul says God has decided to call people who were not his now. God has decided. So because the Jews were angry that Paul was saying that the Gentiles had a place in God's plan, and he was trying to make a case that, look, God had already chosen them, whether or not we like it. God chooses whoever he chooses. And remember yesterday he talked about how, Jacob was chosen over Esau. Even Pharaoh was chosen so that God could use him as an example. And so God has already chosen people regardless of what you feel. In fact, you are not a child of God because you are a physical descendant of Abraham. You are a child of God because you have been chosen by God, because you have accepted God, because you believe, So he's saying here that God has decided to call people who were not his, the Gentiles, okay? He has decided to love them, people who were not loved before. He has decided to call them children of God regardless of what you feel. Regardless of what you feel. So there will just be a remnant of Israelites, according to Isaiah, who will be saved and carry out his sentence on earth. After all is said and done, it's only going to be a few Jews that will actually key into this plan of God. This was Paul saying this as far back then. And Paul is saying that Isaiah said it. Isaiah from donkey years ago. Isaiah said it. So, regardless of how angry the Jews felt, many of you are going to reject the gospel, and in your rejection, many of the people who were not Jews are going to accept the gospel, and God was going to accept them, God was going to love them, and God was going to call them his children. That's what the scripture is saying here. So God made the Gentiles right with him by faith, not because of what they did. They were already not doing anything that was pleasing God anyway. They had to have faith to believe that God will accept them as his children, not because of what they did. You Jews, on the other hand, you Israelites, on the other hand, consistently believe that you were accepted because of what you were doing, and that's where you were missing it. That's what Paul is saying. I can imagine. No wonder they were always trying to kill him. Even the high priests were pretending and were willing to commit murder. Because Paul, the things he was saying, oh my God, it must have been terribly offensive. Terribly offensive. So he's saying that the Jews were cancelled because you guys, you didn't get it. You keep thinking that is what you're doing that will give you a place with God. It's not what you're doing, it's what you believe. It's not what you're doing, it's what you believe. What you have done, has it helped you? You see these Gentiles that you criticize, these Romans, these Africans, these Americans, these other people you criticize, they already, once they believe, because they didn't have the book of the law, they didn't have the temples, they didn't have Moses, they didn't have divine guidance and all of those things, so they had to just believe that God will love them. That's all they had. And that faith was what God needed, and that's what God needs from you Jews. But still, you won't listen. This is Paul addressing the Jews. So he says that God, the law, okay, let me try and capture my notes now. God made the Gentiles right with him because they were not following his standards, and he cancelled the Jews because they wouldn't succeed. They couldn't succeed at the law, and they didn't understand that the law was not going to help them. There was this stumbling block that God placed, which was Jesus. Jesus became the stumbling block. Jesus became the bridge between the Gentiles and the Jews. And the Jews didn't want anything to do with this thing Jesus was saying, because he's cancelling them out and saying, we should believe in you. No, who are you? We've been following the book of the law. That is what we choose to believe. But the Gentiles were like, thank God we can believe, Thank God we can believe. And God said here that God placed a stumbling block for them. And those who believe in that stumbling block will not be disgraced. Those who believe in that stone, that stumbling block, that stone that was placed will not be disgraced. So you won't make your way right with God by your works, by what you do. You have to believe. And so people were like, okay, so what? Okay, so let me try and capture my notes now so that I don't mix it up. Believe in the stone, and that will, so you won't make it right. Jesus has done all. Yes. So Paul was now saying that finally I have come to where I can now make a case for Jesus. Every single thing you need to be able to believe in God, Jesus has done all. Believe in Jesus. Believe in Jesus and you will be made right. They were like, what is the message? You've been saying you have a message. What's the message? And Paul is like, finally I've come to that point where my message is believe in Jesus and you'll be saved. He must have terribly offended the Jews. Till today, the Jews are still offended. A lot of people are joined the Jews in being offended now with Paul, along with other people who believe. But for people like us who believe that we have been saved, and that's sufficient. So I've been made right with God. You know, 3 episodes ago, I really enjoyed the session that I took because it reminded me of the fact that God has done something for me and I am free. I'm free spiritually. Okay, so believe in Jesus and you'll be saved. That is the message that we preach. And that's where Paul ends today. So we did this in record time. Thank you all for joining me today. I see someone from my own country and he was able to join me. So let me know what you think. I'll leave the comments, the scriptures in the description box. Go read it yourself and tell me what you think about what Paul was saying. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. God bless you.